they have adopted a senior pastor model, and over time it's evolved into nobody can question that person in charge.
Well, it's evolved into a superstar. Hey, Cassie. She asks, what's the line between being cautious and calling out teachers as we see that overdone at times, and finally deciding to name names? Yeah. Basically, how do you know when it's the right time to definitively declare someone a false teacher? I think you and I have had some conversation about like, well, do you want to just declare them a heretic? Like there's a process, there used to be a process anyway, in which someone was deemed to be heretical or a heretic. I think that people make mistakes. I have misspoken and had to say, hey, look, I misspoke on this. I didn't clearly understand that. And, bring it out to the light and say, I said this, I might've said this publicly, and I actually was misinformed. I actually hadn't thought this all the way through, or, had the scripture, incorrect or something like that. But I think that, and you can tell me what your thoughts are, share what your thoughts are. I think that it's a process. So one, can you go to this person and be like, hey, can you help me understand what your thought was in this? When I read the scripture, this is in context the way it is. And then just see what their response is. And if their response is...
If you know the person. Yeah. Like you can't always do that with a public figure, but yeah, if you know the person, yeah. Or
yes.
They're an elder in your church or something, yeah.
And then I would say and especially in the local context, if that person's heart, if it's your pastor and their heart is like, well, I'm the pastor and you just a pew warmer, well, don't bring that to me. Then I would go and talk to the elder board or something like that and be like, hey, look, this is concerning. Even if just one person on the elder board, bring it to somebody else's attention and begin to just have more conversation, especially if this isn't like a one-off kind of thing. I think it's more difficult when people are in public ministry and it's like, well, I hear this person declaring, that you should be, promoting LGBTQ plus policies from your church agenda. Approaching those things or those people, I think it's going to take the backbone of people in ministry at their level. And I put that in air quotes because I think in the church right now, we do see people tend to think of one another on certain levels. So if I'm I'm trying to think, I was going to say TD Jakes. Like if I'm at this mega church, multi-million-dollar level, who is going to come in and be like, that oneness situation that you're believing in, let's go ahead and let's bring that around. But I don't know. That's just kind of my thought. Like we have to have people who are willing at all levels to be courageous.
Yeah. I think, let me first address the local level and then let me address public teachers and how I think about this, Cassie. And this is not to say this is the final word, but this is just sort of where I'm at in my journey on this question. When it's a local church situation, definitely you want to go talk to the person, especially if they're in leadership. But what we've noticed is that many people go talk to their elder, their pastor, and they feel dismissed. They feel like they aren't being seen or heard, or their concerns are kind of swept to the side. Kind of this hand waving that goes on that says, hey, we have a statement of faith. There's nothing to see here. That's not helpful. And so that would be concerning. If you try to go up rank of leadership and you're going to, other elders in the congregation to try to see, hey, why is the pastor promoting this ideology or this book or this person? This seems troubling to me. Or can somebody explain sound doctrine to me? I think that if, again, you're dismissed, then that's when it really starts to be a red flag for me. Also, when you're in a church where the pastor is so isolated, like he's surrounded himself with elders who just sort of rubber stamp everything he does, and there isn't that level of doctrinal accountability, there isn't a truly plural leadership model, I think every pastor needs to hold themselves with a level of skepticism and humility about their ability to fall into sin. I think that the biblical pattern of leadership is one of plurality, not of one of a senior pastor. The senior pastor model is a distinctly American phenomenon. And I think that the New Testament ideal is one of a plurality of leaders, of shared leadership. And I think that senior pastor model is a huge component of what causes so many problems, as we see time after time, James McDonald, Mark Driscoll, and others, that they have adopted a senior pastor model. And over time, it's evolved into nobody can question that person in charge.
Well, it's evolved into a superstar.
Yeah, this megachurch superstar personality. And it doesn't really come into shared leadership anymore. So then that becomes an issue of like denominationally, different denominations have different ways of handling that and bringing that up and dealing with discipline. But that's a hard issue. And, that might just be something where you have to leave the church and go find something healthier for your family. But that's some of the red flags. Now, when you talk about public people who have public platforms, what we try to do as a policy is we try as much as possible to make public comments on things that are public. So, we're not into like airing people's dirty laundry and all of that. But we're also very careful not to use the word heretic without warrant, and kind of the boundaries for how do we know when something's a heresy is, well, does it oppose the Nicene Creed? Well, T.D. Jakes, I think you could make an argument, has some beliefs that violate the Nicene Creed as a oneness Pentecostal. So, I think that's a fair question to ask.
Yeah.
We hold here at the ministry to the Chicago Statement on Inerrancy and the Chicago Statement on Hermeneutics. And I think that that also provides a boundary marker for what we're going to say about Scripture. So those are some things I would look for. We hold to the Nashville Statement on sex and gender and marriage. So these are the things that you want to look at as boundary markers. And then that's when you know that, they're starting to drift outside of historic Christianity. But if you're going to a church or you're watching a YouTube preacher and there's not a lot of like doctrinal specificity or accountability, that's problematic. So that's some things to think about.